Hi, this is Zadel and I want to welcome you as we continue our journey into the millionaire next door and the factors that separate the prodigious accumulators of wealth and the under-accumulators of wealth, as referred to by research by Stanley and Danko. This is video part 5 of an 8-part series, and I highly recommend you check out the first parts, as each part of this video series builds on each other, and you're going to need all 7 factors to make it and make it well in this lifetime. Now, you'll recall in the last video we discovered a fundamental difference in the belief structure of those that are more financial, is that they believe that financial independence is far more important than displaying high social status. This week we're going to talk about what's called economic outpatient care. That is, receiving financial support from your parents. You see, what happens is when most people make it, when they become prodigious accumulators of wealth and they have a family, they feel compelled, even obligated to provide financial support for those children. I remember when I was in high school, one kid, their parents bought him a brand new car. Now that was unheard of in my school, and we thought, holy smokes, he was so lucky. Well, I'm not so sure now that I read the research here. You see, the research shows that the more dollars you give your children, the fewer dollars they will accumulate. Conversely, the fewer dollars a child is given, the more dollars they will actually accumulate. You know the saying, if you give a man a crutch, you give him a limp? Well, I'd like to say, if you give a person a financial crutch, you will give them a financial limp. And we have a large number of people now displaying high socioeconomic status. They're displaying it, but what you don't realize is this is supported by economic outpatient care. That is, cash gifts from their parents. These people are living a complete facade, and it's interesting, they even believe that their parents' wealth already is their own wealth, which I find interesting. In fact, in over 46% of cases, according to the book, affluent families, but research based in the United States, give their children more than $15,000 per year in cash gifts or the equivalent. Now, this might come in stamp collections or coin collections. It might come in paying for their dental or medical expenses. There might be deposits for houses. There was a whole raft of stuff. Now, there is one caveat on this, which we'll get to in a moment, but I think it's really interesting. The children, when surveyed, grossly underestimated the amount of money they were actually given in support from their parents, and when the parents were interviewed, turns out they gave them a lot more than the children ever reported, which I find really interesting. So in most cases, these parents thought they were giving their child an economic leg up in life, a kickstart, a help, that they thought they could ignite them and they would go on and be financially successful. And the truth is, that's just not the case. In most cases, all they did was make these people, these adults, economically dependent. Now, we're not talking about down and out people. We're talking about people that are actually doctors and lawyers and accountants, and they're high class professionals anyway, and they're still being funded by their parents, which I thought was interesting. Now, the one caveat is the book does differentiate between parents providing for the financial education of their children. They often do pay for their higher education, be that in any form, courses or even tertiary education. And many of these people go on to become self-sufficient professionals in their own right, be that doctors, accountants, or lawyers, all that sort of stuff, and do go on and become successful. However, the research does report in 80% of cases, those children who did not receive $1 or few dollars of economic outpatient care, in 80% of cases, they earn more and they're worth more than those that did, which I think is very interesting. You know, I have a family friend, Marianne. Marianne's at the second highest level in one of Australia's major banks. And I asked Marianne one time, Marianne, who is at the absolutely top levels of your banks? And I wasn't surprised when she told me, Stuart, every one of them is come from descent, either Chinese, Indian, Sri Lankan, Pakistani, and every one of them come from families generally of poverty, and certainly countries where poverty was prevalent. Every one of them had a massive desire, a burning desire to create wealth and make good, because they grew up in circumstances that were anything but. Now, it's interesting, Andrew Carnegie, the one-time richest man in the world, who actually inspired Napoleon Hill to write the all-time classic, you'll know the book, Think and Grow Rich. Carnegie, of the 504 richest people in the world that he knew very well, he said in all cases, every single one of them had totally wrecked their children by giving them massive unearned wealth. In fact, he was often quoted as saying, the biggest burden you can bestow on any he said any young man at the time was massive unearned wealth. I bet some of you still want to try it though, don't you? Well, it's interesting, you know, I don't want to win $1 million, I want to make it. Why? Absolutely. Firstly, you avoid the biggest burden, according to Carnegie, that you could ever get bestowed on you. I think that alone is worthwhile, the advice of the richest man in the world. Second thing is, most of them blow it anyway. And the third thing is, if you make it, my friends, one, you value it, you know what it took to make it, and you know how to do it again. And if you don't want to stop at one, you might want to earn 2 or 3 if you want to accumulate more in this lifetime. It's totally your choice. But let me share you, the only security you have in this lifetime is up here between your ears. It's not in your bank balance, it's not in your income, it's not in your assets. The only security in this lifetime that will help you sleep well at night is up here between your ears. You see, you could relocate to a foreign country, start over again tomorrow and make it again. In fact, I have a number of clients that were very wealthy from the Asian countries. Indonesia, for example, I'm aware of one country, and the government dictatorship, or they have a coup, and they just seized all of the citizens' assets and nationalized them. Those people overnight went from massive multi-millionaires to zero. Relocated to Australia, multi-millionaire again, starting with nothing within just a couple of years. And this is often the case, and I'm sure you've heard many of these such stories before. So again, the only security is up here between your ears. Now, to finish this lesson, I want to quote directly from the book, The Millionaire Next Door, on page 167 of my copy, where he says, so the product of economic outpatient care. What happens when weakened children become adults? Well, they typically lack initiative. More often than not, they are economic underachievers, but have a high propensity to spend. That's why they need economic subsidies to maintain the standard of living they enjoyed in their parents' home. We'll say it again. The more dollars adult children receive, the fewer dollars they accumulate, while those who are given fewer dollars accumulate more. I want to share with you a couple of other bits as well in the closing of this book, and a couple of things that I thought were interesting. There's a couple of points here they point out. So point 1, giving precipitates more consumption than saving and investing. So parents thought their kids were going to do better or save it or invest it. They don't, they spend it. Gift receivers in general never fully distinguish between their wealth and the wealth of their gift-giving parents. They're already banking on their parents' money being their own. I find that really interesting. Gift givers are significantly more dependent on credit than are non-receivers. And number 4, receivers of gifts invest much less money than do non-receivers. You see, these people found out it's much easier to spend other people's money than it is to spend self-generated money. You know what? I consider myself fortunate to have grown up in what you'd probably call a middle-class family in Australia, where my father actually had 2 and sometimes 3 jobs most of his life to support his family and his 3 children and to make ends meet. My mum, whilst supporting 3 children, worked permanent part-time for 43 years in her life. And you know what? By default, my parents taught me that pride of ownership follows pride of ownership. This is Stuart Zadel.